Today I want to talk about how we heal a relationship after you find out your partner has been hiding a serious porn addiction. So this also could apply to other secrets that they've been keeping, or infidelity or other things like that, but I'll specifically be talking about porn addictions here. I also have playlists that go more into betrayal trauma and porn issues and healing relationships and all of that, so you can reference that if you want to as well. And remember, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit the little bell notification button if you want to be notified when new videos come out. So how do we heal a relationship after you find out that someone has been hiding a serious porn addiction? Now, I'm gonna probably be talking from the women's perspective, and the man has the problem because that's what I see most often, but that's definitely not always the case, right? But that is kind of what I work with a lot and see a lot, is that the woman has a lot of issues with betrayal and trust and all kinds of things after discovering that her husband or boyfriend has been hiding a serious porn addiction or serious secret or issue that they haven't told them about. And this has crazy impacts. And I have a lot on betrayal trauma and a lot of stuff that goes deeper into that, because the impacts of this on the person that finds out and the relationship is just, it's way more than we ever thought it was in the past. And it really is a lot like PTSD, which is why we now call it betrayal trauma, because the trauma of being betrayed to that level is really, really severe, and it can bring on a lot of really severe symptoms. So if you're not bouncing back and trusting and able to work through things like you'd like to be or like you thought you would be, then that's why, right? It's not because you're crazy. It's not because you can't work through your trust issues. It's because it's that traumatic that it actually causes those severe impacts. So when a couple comes to me with this issue, I'm so glad that they're coming to me, because the first thing that I would say is, if you're in this situation, you need to get outside help. This isn't something that you can work through well on your own, especially if you've been really, really hurt by this, because it essentially destroys everything. It destroys your whole view of the marriage and of the other person and of everything, right? It kind of burns the house down, and you can't really rebuild the house by yourself. And you also won't really know how to take on a lot of this stuff by yourself. And often what I see happening is that the man will get his issues sorted, or try to, maybe go to therapy or get help or do that kind of stuff, and maybe he makes progress there. But when he comes back into the relationship is still broken, and she still can't trust him and still can't move through her issues with this. And that's because this has now burned the house down. So we can't just fix part of the house and expect it to all function well, right? He does need to do his own work and get his own help, for sure. But then you also have to have the couple work through their stuff and work through things together. And ideally, I like to see the woman and the man, or each partner, get their own help and then be able to come back together and work through things, because it's a difficult road to rebuild. And some people find that it's too difficult, but usually it's just that it takes so much time and they don't get the right help at first, so it takes even more time. So if you can get help from the jump and really go into that and get the right support for that, then that's ideal. And there's a few things that we're gonna have to rebuild over time. We're gonna have to really get into what happened and why, and understanding that, and understanding what happened from the partner's perspective, because the way each person breaks it down in their head is really different. So a lot of times the man has been struggling with this for a long time. They have formed this as an outlet, or for whatever reason, and it comes up a lot with stress or with anxiety, or just to sort of relieve some of that pressure. And the woman thinks of it as, I'm not enough for him, I don't please him enough sexually, he's dissatisfied with our sex life, he's dissatisfied with me, he thinks I'm ugly, he isn't happy with me. They take it in all kinds of different directions, but it's often really personal on them. And a lot of times that actually isn't the case. Like, that's not the intention of the other partner, but it does happen, especially because when someone is watching a lot of extreme porn, they also tend to be more judgmental of you and more negative of you and have expectations that aren't really helpful. And so all of that just sort of exacerbates all of these problems and makes them worse, right? So there's a lot to undo here and a lot to understand. So being able to work with somebody who is educated on all this and can walk you through, this is how all of this impacts you, and these are your different perspectives, and this is why we need to kind of untangle and understand these a little more and try to rebuild with a better understanding of each other and how this has impacted each of you. And understanding each other doesn't take away the pain or the anger or the hurt, but it opens up some space to be able to rebuild from, at least from a more kind of vulnerable place where you can actually rebuild. Because when the house has been burned down to that level, some people aren't able to rebuild because they have nothing left to give, and they're not open to being vulnerable anymore. So if we can open that door a little bit, then we can start to rebuild on that. Because we're gonna have to establish trust again and establish connection again. We're gonna have to rebuild intimacy. We're gonna have to start small, and we're gonna have to reconnect all of those things. And that can be kind of weird to sort out because you probably have been together for a while and this wasn't a problem in the past. But because of this issue, we now have to sort of relearn and rework all of those things and establish all of that again. And again, that's gonna take some time and some work to rebuild that, and to start small, and to check your expectations, and to be patient. And it really takes a lot of patience. And I actually feel like the more I do this, it's going to take a lot of patience from the partner who did the harm as well, because they are gonna feel like, I'm doing everything I can, like why aren't you moving through this, or why can't you trust me, or why can't you do anything to move through this at all, when I'm showing you everything that I can, that I'm in this and I'm trying. And they'll get really impatient with that. But we have to try to check that, because the other person has been so harmed that they're literally not able to give in that same way because they have been so hurt. So we're gonna have to reestablish that and start from the bottom and start small and start building on all of that. So those are some things that I think are really important to look at. I have my notes here. I'm just gonna check because I usually go off on tangents and miss things. So yeah, work on basic communication. That's a big piece because we've often gotten lost in trying to prove our point, or prove that we are loyal, or prove that we're in a different space, that we're not actually listening to understand. And we have to start back building kind of the basic communication and understanding and love. And I always love working in love languages too, right? Because if you understand how someone feels and shows love, then you can better work on connecting with them. And after a big thing like this, those are probably gonna have to be reworked a bit, because physical intimacy may need to come later. Usually it needs to come later. If this harm has happened, we've gotta put that over here. That's gonna come after we reestablish connection and intimacy and communication. We have to create safety for that, because you can't push that. That's been too harmed. So we're gonna have to rework that. So if your love language is physical affection, then that's gonna have to be sort of reworked into small ways, and in ways that the person feels comfortable and safe with. So some people who are really hurt, they don't want to be touched. They've put a wall up to you. So you're gonna have to start small, and it's gonna have to be sort of on their terms, right? So you're gonna have to find different ways to sort of connect with them and make them feel like you're there. And those are all things that we work on and that we can work on, but it needs to be taken with small steps, low expectations, and continued work and patience. expectations. So I know that was a lot and that was all over the place, but check out my betrayal trauma playlist if you want to look at that more and get into more pieces of this more. Also comment below if you have any questions or comments. Check out my website if you want to reach out to me directly, if you have any questions that you want me to answer, to check out if there's open groups running right now that you can join, all of that. Let me know if I can help with any of that. And yeah, that's it. Bye guys.